Hi, this is Faye with Girls Gone Right.
And this is Megan, and we have a very special guest with us today. We have Madison Cawthorn, former Congressman for the United States. How are you, Madison?
I'm great. Very excited to be on the show. Thank you guys for having me.
We're happy to have you in Nashville.
I mean, it's always a good, anytime you have a good excuse to come to Nashville, you have to take it.
Yeah.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw. Welcome to Music City. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2024 candidates.
Great.
Guys, this has been heating up. As we have seen on the campaign trail, a few people have thrown their name in the hat.
It seems like the roster keeps growing daily.
Yeah.
So we have quite the list to go through.
Yeah, we have a long list. We are just going to go through and talk about the biggest weaknesses and the strengths of these candidates and kind of prepare you guys for who's running, inform you guys so you can know who you should be looking out for, who should be on your radar. So we're really excited. First candidate, well, no, before we even dive into this, we have a question.
Let's hear it.
You ready? Trump or Biden?
It's not a hard choice there. I'm going Trump. That's an easy one for me.
Okay, guys, he's safe. Great. Okay.
Love it.
So first candidate, as we know, Trump is running again.
Yeah.
So what is your stance on him running again?
So when I first ran for Congress, Donald Trump actually endorsed against me. And he had never lost a primary election battle where he had endorsed somebody in Congress ever. Yeah. There was one situation with Thomas Massey, but that didn't really count. But when he had endorsed somebody in an open seat, that person always wins. And anyways, when that happened, my campaign was being ran very differently. I'd never ran a campaign before. I was 24 years old. And at that moment, I remember we were all sitting at this big table and Donald Trump endorsed and, some guy walked up to my chair and was like, hey, Donald Trump just endorsed your opponent. Yeah. Oh, and so it was a very somber moment. I smiled. I got really happy. I was like, guys, I genuinely believe this means we're going to win. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, just think about it. Like, God always wants the credit in every single victory that you see throughout the Bible and all these things. I mean, look at David versus Goliath. He made it the most difficult battle that you could ever overcome. So when I heard that Donald Trump had endorsed against me, something that seemed like an impossibility in that situation, I was very confident that we were going to be able to win. Also, I was running as a much more hardcore Trump candidate than the person that he endorsed. There was like some personal connections there with somebody in his council. And so that's why he got involved in the race. And then, I was able to beat him in that race, which was unheard of, which was great. Shout out to the people of Western North Carolina. And then as things kept going on, I remember Donald Trump called that night and, I won't go into the details of the conversation, but he's like, Madison, you even beat me. Like, that's incredible. And then I just like, well, sir, I'll let you make it up to me. It was really cool because, when I answered the phone, I was on the way back from the victory party. Somebody said, oh, this is Chris on the Air Force One switchboard. I'm going to connect. Do you have time to be connected to the president? I was just like, oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I got to talk to him, and then I told him, well, sir, I'll let you make it up to me. Just almost as a joke. Yeah. And he loved that and then invited me and my whole family up to the White House. And then after that, he asked me to speak at the RNC. And that really changed my life. 60 million viewers. It was a great opportunity. And then after that, I've gotten to see him in a lot of situations. I got to see him, when he was making difficult choices. I got to see him when he was, at home with his wife and his family and just get to talk to him about, what was it like when you were killing Soleimani? Like, what were some strategic decisions you had to make before you did that? And, it's one of those situations where you're sitting down, like, if you could have dinner with anyone, what would you ask?
Yeah.
And so that was a really cool situation. But I've also seen the man go out on a limb for people when it's not politically expedient. His loyalty is unquestionable. I mean, I'm serious. Like, you could call him right now and he would answer the phone and say, what can I do for you? Anything I can do. He's generous, he's kind, very shrewd, very smart. So I think, he's a dynamo. He's going to be very difficult to beat. You saw what happened in 2016 when, the field was, 14 strong. He does better when there's more people to attack. He can just sit there. And most people will be like, okay, my target for this debate is this person. Whereas Donald Trump walks in, it's like, I'm destroying all of them.
Everybody.
And it's going to be great. It's a situation where I found that even a lot of the people he was running against started sitting there just like kind of nodding their head like, wow, I agree with this guy. You all should vote for him.
Yeah.
And so I think he's a shoo-in for the victory. He just keeps getting better and better, but I have no doubt he will win the nomination.
Yeah, I like that energy, and I think you are very much spot on. He has such a great personality, and that's what makes him stand out from the other candidates, is he's extremely likable, and he just has character to him, and he's so funny. He has so many iconic moments.
Human.
Yeah, Yeah, he is.
He's very much human, whereas most politicians are just politicians. But I feel like with Trump, there is some things that I think he could be a little bit more polished on, but I do love that about him, that he is not polished, that he is just human. He talks to you like a human.
And people get onto that all the time. It's like, well, I wish he wasn't so rude, or wish he didn't do all these things, or he was so brash. One, we need to remember culturally where he's from. He's from New York City, so kind of a harsh city. But two, I like the fact that he's got a little fight in him. I like the fact that he's not going to sit there and he says the things that are just so true. That especially like if I was sitting around with my guys, let's say we're shooting at the gun range, we're just out hunting hogs or whatever. He says stuff that we would say. And then, when Megyn Kelly asked him, it's like, you've called women horses, you've called them dog-faced pony, or whatever he's saying. And then he said, only Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, I almost fell out of my chair. Or then, I think the moment I realized he was absolutely going to win the 2016 election was when Hillary Clinton was getting on to him about his taxes. And that the fact that he doesn't pay many taxes and that he always tries to get out. And then he sat there and said, yeah, I try to not pay the taxes. I want to pay the least amount of taxes I possibly can.
That's what everyone's thinking.
And then everyone in the crowd started booing. And he said, you know why all these people are booing? Because they're all donors to get into here.
Yeah.
And he said, but I guarantee none of you will change the tax code because all of you donors want the same tax code because you use the same loopholes. And I said, that's a guy who's just speaking for the American people. And he's not putting it through, well, how is that going to sound, with the test party and the test subjects. He's not putting it through a soundboard to go through 20 consultants. He just sits there, and the thing I love about watching him at rallies is he does soundboarding with just normal American crowds and rallies. 10,000 people will sit there and be like, how do you guys feel about, Josh Hawley as my VP? Then he'll base it on the crowd reaction of like, oh, people like him. Okay, we're going to do that. And so I think it's pretty incredible.
That is awesome.
Spot
on. Another fun fact about Trump is he is alcohol-free, which I just learned this. I didn't know that.
I did know that.
I was so shocked, but I think that says a lot about his character, because a lot of people just think that he's too much, he's over the top, his personality's too big, but he's honestly has such a good character that speaks volumes. He's so personable. He wants to get to know our country. He cares about our country, and he's dedicated. And because of the trauma that he suffered with the alcohol accident, his brother, he doesn't drink.
Yeah,
which I find that just so
admirable,
inspiring and heartwarming, the reason why he's doing it. So that made me like him even more.
I mean, I remember when he met one of my nieces, he told her, no alcohol, no cigarettes, and no drugs. I mean, he just pounds that all the time. You can watch clips of him saying it in the 70s. He's been the same guy since he's been in the public eye.
Yeah, and that's really important too, is he's stayed the same.
Right.
He has not changed for his audience, which a lot of candidates do change themselves for their audience and who they want to get to vote for them. They're chameleons, and Trump is not.
Right, absolutely.
So that's very impressive. So I think the biggest strength we can all agree is that he's very likable. He has a personality. What is Trump's biggest weakness?
Trump's biggest weakness? I mean, that's a difficult question, because you would say his biggest weakness is the administrative state and the network medias who are always after him, and people who are trying to pin him on every single little thing he does. But at the same time, that's one of his biggest strengths. Because how many business owners have suffered under what an IRS audit is like, or how many gun store owners have had to have an ATF agent come in? It's like, well, this one looks like an eye, so you're losing your license and you can't feed your family from now on.
Yeah.
And Americans have seen what the administrative state can do, and what these three-letter agencies come in and destroy your businesses. People who are trying to apply for a liquor license and having to wait months and months, and it's like, oh, this isn't working for my investment ideas, and this isn't going to be able to pan out. Or people who are trying to build a new building to give low-income housing in communities that need it. So then the EPA comes and it's like, well, there is a 6-inch stream right there, so you can't move that, so you're not going to be able to build here. And, when I see a candidate who is being attacked and ravished by the people who attack and ravage the American people, I'm like, that guy gets it. He understands it. I mean, they always attack who they fear. And so if, the bombers that, come home with no bullet holes in them, those are the ones that weren't over any targets that mattered.
Yeah.
And so that's although it is his biggest weakness that these people are all out after him, it's also his greatest strength, because it makes people like me be like, I will die for that man.
Yeah. Yeah. The loyalty.
I agree.
So his greatest strength his greatest weakness can also be a strength.
Right.
So, Yeah,
I think the vaccine is probably going to be his.
Yeah,
I think people are still debating like his push for it, but I think the Operation Warp Speed thing was just to kind of, in my opinion, was to calm the nation down, to know that there was some sort of solution being provided later on throughout the pandemic. But I think that these people that are still harping on the fact that, well, he pushed the vaccine, I'm like, oh.
But on another thing, there are critics who are like, oh, well, he really pushed the vaccine. You'll hear this from kind of the Ben Shapiro types and people who are trying to push DeSantis for some deranged reason. You also remember that at every single point he said, but it shouldn't be forced. It's a decision.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't care if you want to create a product. As long as you don't force me to buy your product, that's fine with me. If Kendall Jenner wants to go out and create some lip filler serum, that's fine. No one wants to stop her. But if she's like, now I'm going to force every single person to have lip filler in the country, I'd be like, now see, that's an issue. Yeah. And Trump never did that. And so I think that people try to miscue that because there's a lot of anger towards vaccines, as there should be, in big pharma. And it's just a situation. But people try to skew that narrative a lot.
I agree.
Yeah. I agree with Megan that is going to be a hard thing to overcome this election and just how he handled that. But to his credit, this has never happened before. This was something that just came out to attack. Like, I mean, it was, election year. And I think it was meant to stir the pot. And if anyone else was in office, this is something huge to handle so quickly.
I don't think anybody could have handled it right or wrong.
Right.
I don't think that there was a perfect
People
way
would
to
be mad either decision you made. Yeah.
But I think he did the best. He handled it the best way that he could.
Yeah.
So I think that credits him, and a lot of people didn't know how to handle this.
No one would have known how to
There's
handle
no protocol for how to handle this.
A global pandemic.
Yeah, they're like, okay, so what do we do? I think it's such a hard situation.
Let's watch these movies.
Where everyone dies.
Okay, everyone's going to be zombies.
Everyone dies, they run out of food. It's like a zombie land or something like that.
And I don't know how you guys felt, but I remember the first time I started talking about COVID, I think the first time I ever heard about Tulsi Gabbard on the Democratic debate stage.
Yeah.
She brought it up. And she very aptly said this is going to be the biggest issue in the coming election. Yeah. But then when you saw, when they were saying, oh, well, if we don't have 2 weeks to slow the spread, everyone's going to die. It's going to be terrible. The mortality rate's this high. I mean, I'm sure most people they had the same way. I was like, oh, well, we should probably take this seriously. I remember about a week in, and I was like, okay, I don't see, I don't see, wagons rolling down the streets with bells ringing saying, bring out your dead. I was like, maybe, and then you started asking your friends, do you know anyone who's died from this? Not from a respirator, not from like malfeasance in the actual hospital. Do you know anyone who actually died from this? Or do you know anyone that knows anyone? And then everyone's like, no, I don't. Like, okay, well, I think this is being overblown.
You think? Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. But other than that, probably the strongest candidate.
Yes.
Yeah. Probably, actually, he is a very strong candidate, and his campaign trail he's going very hard on that.
Also, if you think about it, as of right now, it looks like Biden's going to be the nominee. It seems like they're also preparing Gavin Newsom to step up if something happens. Who knows? But right now, it looks like Gavin Newsom is going to be Joe Biden is going to be their nominee. Ugh. It is the easiest campaign strategy ever for a general election. People are like, well, how's he going to win in a general election? It is the easiest message I've ever heard. It's just saying, listen, you've seen us under both presidencies. We're both competing for a second term. You liked your life and your money and your wallet and your economy more under me than you do under this guy. Re-elect me, we can go back to that.
Yeah.
That's an easy win. And then when you have all of this cultural ridiculousness going on with the transgenderism and people, the alphabet mafia trying to just wipe out all normal semblances of society, he can say, look how crazy the world's gotten. Let's just go back to where we were. Let's focus on a strong economy. Let's focus on strong foreign policy where we're feared all around the world. Let's stop China from attacking Taiwan. He says he can end the war with Russia and Ukraine in a single day. These are the kind of things that I want to hear. I'm like, okay, he doesn't really care about what's going on over there. He just wants the killing to stop. He wants a secure border. He wants a strong economy. These are all things I like.
Yeah. And Trump just has something about him. He's so powerful. And people are scared of him. Other countries were scared of America when Trump was in office. Yeah. he can call up anyone he wants. People are actually scared of him and they respect him. No one respects Biden.
That's absolutely right. And the greatest thing about Trump is his unpredictability.
Yeah.
So the majority of world leaders, they say, oh, let's say maybe Iran's going to push a naval vessel close to one of ours, and that you'll see on the headlines, oh, there's a near miss on two naval vessels. The thing that kept the other nations in line is they didn't know how he was going to respond. Is he going to send a tweet saying, I have a red button that's bigger than yours? Is he going to bomb, your top military general? Is he going to implement sanctions? These people have no idea. With Joe Biden, you're like, okay, I know exactly what he's going to do. He's just going to say, oh, well, he's not going to do anything.
No.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very
Unpredictability is a good thing in a leader.
Yes.
Yeah. And next up, we have DeSantis.
Okay.
So,
He said deranged a second ago.
I didn't say DeSantis was deranged. I think that man's very intelligent,
Yeah.
very smart. I think people that are trying to push him as if he's a viable candidate to take down Trump, they are deranged.
Yes.
And they're just trying to get clicks on their stupid podcasts.
I don't think it's his time.
Yeah, and you know what? I think, and I'm happy to say this, I think that he is the best governor that we've had in America.
Yeah.
Possibly ever. I mean,
America's
he
governor.
is on top of things. He made Florida phenomenal. I literally moved to Florida because of the world he created down there.
Yeah.
But you know what? I care so much about loyalty. And so many of the Trump loyalists, me included, feel like what he did was disloyal to Trump.
Yeah.
I feel like he should have come out, and sure, there would have been some politicking, like, hey, I'm your only person who could possibly be a rival to you. If you're willing to push me for 2028, I will sit in the sidelines and I'll endorse you for this election. It's a closed book case. Instead, he said, no, I'm going to go for it right now, knowing that he sucks at retail politics, knowing that he is not a magnanimous character, knowing that he barely won his election in Florida, and only because of the Trump endorsement, and knowing that the only way he's capable of winning things in large landslide majorities is when he's actually pulling the levers of power and gets to show, hey, I'm actually really good at this. He's never been president. He can't say, oh, actually, I would be really good at foreign policy, because he's never done it. The only thing he's ever done with foreign policy is he served in the military. We all thank him for that. And he has an awesome wife. Well, Donald Trump has an awesome wife too, and he's pulled the levers of power, and he can do retail politics.
Yeah.
I would love to see Ron DeSantis walk into a Dairy Queen in Iowa and have it packed out with 7,000 people surrounding it, and then him say, "Oh, we're going to buy this for everybody." I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's incredible that he thought that he could take down Donald Trump, and all of his decisions have now become so donor focused. And you're watching the people that he's being forced to surround himself with these people. He was a Freedom Caucus guy when he was a member of Congress. I was in the Freedom Caucus. I respect what he did in Congress, respect what he did in Florida. But because all of the people that the based celebrities and the based influencers and the based billionaires, all of those guys are surrounding themselves with Trump. So now he is forced to go find money from the Bushes and get endorsements from the World Economic Forum and get all of these terrible people to come and try and rally around him. And then I'm saying, but if you need their money, you're going to bend to their will. I've seen it in politics a million times.
Yeah.
If you're not based on it, Donald Trump doesn't need anybody's money. Some politicians are able to raise, all of their donations from $5 from, 600,000 people, and you have enough money to win an election. That's not where he's at. He's going to have to focus on these big donors, and he's going to have to capitulate to them on so many issues. And that's not what I want in the White House.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Would have loved for him to run in 2028. I think he'll still be a very powerful candidate in 2028. I'm not sure I could ever support him. I really don't. If you think that it was a good idea to go against Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential primary, you're dumb. I mean, that's just a dumb decision.
I agree. I think he's a great governor, and I think that, like you said, he has a little bit more to prove as far as how can he prove to us that he can run the nation. Like, we know that you can run Florida, and you're doing a great job at it, but it's very different. That's one state versus 50.
It's very different from having to manage, because most of Florida, I lived there, everyone's pretty the same.
Yeah.
We all have a great life. Everyone's like, no one's really mad at each other. It's like, hey, we all live in Florida. We're good. Let's all have a good time.
Yeah.
But when you're having to run the Rust Belt and trying to bring manufacturing jobs back to the continental United States and the Midwest, but then also have to cater to people in Portland and then worry about wildfires in California, you have so many different interests that are coming for you aside from just protecting the Everglades.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that he can do that. I don't know that he can.
Yeah. There are so many different policies that affect each state differently.
Right.
So that would be a huge test. Obviously, our immigration policy is huge in Florida, and I think personally, my favorite thing that he's done is the Martha's Vineyard. That was hysterical. And I think that's like my favorite political satire event because it was honestly so funny.
It was so funny.
I didn't know if it was real life when it was happening. I'm like,
this is real life.
Yeah, this has got to be Babylon Bee type thing. But that was hilarious. I think it really made a point. A lot of people, it caused conflict. Like, is he doing the right thing by doing this, or is he just trying to be an asshole? But I think he did it. He didn't care. And he really made a point. He dropped them off in front of Kamala's house in D.C. That's hilarious. And he was like, no, I've been doing this. You guys are just now finding out about it. I've been doing this for months.
Well, and it also had a great effect or reverse effect on these liberally run states like New York, because Mayor Adams came out and was like, whoa, wait a minute.
We don't want them here.
We're a sanctuary city, but we don't want them here.
They're like, well,
no, who's going to mow the lawns? Isn't that what somebody said? Like, come on.
Exactly. There's sanctuary places, but there's no border. So they don't have to have that.
They're all for it until it affects them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it affected them. So I think it was just very powerful because it gave everyone a taste of their own medicine.
Yes.
And it really proved a solid point. So I love that he did that. And when he did that, I'm like, gosh, I hope he runs for president, because that is just, it was a very Trump thing.
Yep.
In the sense that he's just so ballsy.
Oh, yeah.
And I
And
really
the way
like
he
that.
handles the media, like when he has those little,
tips.
tips when he's sitting there holding a Q&A, and he just crushes them. I love it.
Yeah.
I think his greatest strength is his wife. I mean, Casey DeSantis is awesome. She is a phenomenal human being. But it's just, again, I have to be very concerned about your decision making of who to choose conflicts with, when you have an 8,000-pound gorilla with a million-person army who will not do anything for him.
Yeah. I think he's a great candidate, but he's not the best one.
Right.
So it's just not his time.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I don't even think he's the second best candidate. I mean, he might be polling the second best. I think the second best candidate would be Vivek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if Donald Trump was not in the race, I would be voting for Vivek.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
He's awesome.
I like Vivek. I think he is very new to the world of politics in the sense that
I love that.
I think
so
it can
is
be
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's true. I don't think a lot of people know a whole lot about Vivek. Like, his name doesn't have as much recognition as DeSantis or Trump.
Right.
And I think maybe that the campaigning strategy could heighten that to get his name out there a little more. But he does have some things that he talks about during his campaign that I really like, that he wants to change the voting age to 25.
I think that's great.
Which, it's very controversial, but I think that he has a very good point on this, and it's very interesting. It makes him like kind of a controversial candidate.
I think changing the voting age to 25 is perfect, because you really don't know what you want in your life when you're 18. Like, you really don't. You can't figure that out yet. You haven't figured it out yet. I wouldn't say that you've figured everything out at 25 either, but an 18-year-old's voice when it comes to picking who's going to run the country is a little scary.
But is it controversial because you can be 18 and enlist in the military?
True.
And you can't vote.
I've got to push back on both of these ideas that you're pushing. And I understand that it would be a net positive for conservatives if we move the voting age to 25 for right now. It would help our election processes right now, because most people, they've started paying taxes long enough. They're out of college. They're not in the indoctrination camps. They can start being a little more realistic. But I really am against it, because I think that we live in this perpetual state of delayed adulthood in America.
Good point.
And and again, I think the main problem with that is our government-run education system. I was homeschooled all the way through. I was raised in a very particular way, to where if my parents were, something would tragically have happened when I was probably 13, I think I would have been just fine. My parents raised me to be able to be a leader at a very, very young age. I mean, they instilled that in me, whether it was through, I was raised on Proverbs and push-ups. You got to read the Proverbs, get the wisdom, but then if you don't follow wisdom, then you're going to be physically punished. And so whether that's doing push-ups or, just having to fight your dad, which is great. And it was the best way to be raised, because, it taught you consequences, it taught you all these things. And I think that's something that we're missing in America right now. And you look at, the way the algorithms are different in the North America versus how they are in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to go viral on TikTok in China, you have to focus on STEM. You have to get some kind of a honorific, award from somebody. You have to be giving a phenomenal oration speech that's, encouraging masculinity and femininity and having a family and these kind of things. Whereas if you want to go viral on TikTok in America, I mean, you just have to take your clothes off. It's insane.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's this major push to continue having adolescents continue into your late 20s in America.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that's totally wrong. And of course, not every single person is going to be capable of leading, a battleship like they did in the Age of Discovery. At 15 years old when the captain died, and this guy's like, well, this 15-year-old's honestly the best among us. He's going to hop up here and lead the ship. But I think that, people need to have a lot more consequences and difficulties in their lives that a lot younger. I mean, I hate the fact that I'm in a wheelchair. It's a terrible life, but I am very thankful that God put such a difficult hardship in my life so young, because it prepared me for the world that we live in now. Yeah. And you know what? I just think that if we continue to delay the voting age until 25, people are going to be like, oh, well, it's not my problem. I don't need to worry about it. Because I don't know how old you guys were when the White House was lit up in rainbow colors and gay marriage became legal. When people are going on and on about that, it's like, look, that fight was lost before I was here. Yeah. And so, I'm focused right now on stopping this transgender, agenda that's going on in America.
Yeah.
And if we continue, pushing off until you're 25, well, you're able to run for Congress when you're 25. Yeah. I ran for Congress when I was 24. And I think the only reason I was able to have the wherewithal to do that is because when I was about to get ready to start voting, I started listening to Rush Limbaugh. I was like, well, I'm going to vote soon. I need to know what I'm going to be voting on.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Oh, man, probably my favorite moment in life, because I grew up my entire life listening to Rush Limbaugh with my dad going to work. And it was probably within his last 10 broadcasts, I was featured on it, and it was the coolest thing in the world to hear Rush Limbaugh talk about me. And it was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. But anyways,
that's a very valid point.
Yeah, strongly against 25.
That actually makes me change my mind.
Yeah, you convinced us. That is an interesting angle, and I do think that the biggest issue in America right now is the lack of personal responsibility. No one wants more freedom, or the left doesn't want more freedom, because with more freedom comes more responsibility, and people are afraid of that. Right. And that's the issue that we're seeing everywhere right now. No one wants to pay for things. They want to erase their debt that they signed up for, that they went to college for, and
no one wants to work.
No one wants to take responsibility for their sexual actions. We are lacking so much responsibility in this country. So I agree with you there that unfortunately we don't have a lot of 25-year-olds or 18-year-olds that are responsible or want that responsibility, but that's what we need to fix. Maybe it's not the age for voting, but we need to fix where people are at that age.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the bigger problem.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it kind of boils down to what is being suppressed and banned and hidden on these social media platforms, because that's where all these kids are getting their information from.
1,000,000%, yeah. But aside from the voting age thing, I think Vivek Ramaswamy is a phenomenal candidate. He's incredibly well-spoken. He's willing to go into the CNN Lion's Den and fight these people all day. I don't know if he's been on The View yet. I would love to watch him on The View.
That would be great.
Massacre them. It'd be great. And then, obviously, we're talking intellectually massacre them. But, Vivek's awesome. And he was the only candidate who, when Donald Trump was being arraigned in Miami, who actually went down there and said, this is wrong. This is going after your political opponents. Not other candidate did that, because they were all like, even Ron DeSantis. You have the leader of the Republican Party being arraigned because he's a political opponent in your state. And you're going to say, oh, I've got nothing to do with that. I'm just going to piddle around and focus over here and try and sell a book in Iowa because I'm whatever. Whereas Vivek Ramaswamy went down and was like, yeah, look, I hope I beat this guy in an election, but what's going on to him is wrong, and we should all stand beside him. Yeah. And I think I think most candidates in the Republican primary should take a pledge that if Donald Trump is indicted or anything bad happens, anything like that, that he will be pardoned by whichever one of them wins. I really do believe that should happen. But anyways, I don't think Vivek's going to win, obviously, but I do think he is the second best choice. He's phenomenal.
Yeah. I think he has a great career ahead of him in politics.
And he's personable, he's smart, he has a young family, he's successful, well-spoken. He's a dynamo.
Yeah.
Big fan of Vivek.
Extremely well-spoken, very smart.
He's got a great scheduler. He's on top of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to get to know him throughout the next year with his campaign.
Right.
So next candidate, we have Nikki Haley.
Oh,
so
UN ambassador.
So I feel like some people just kind of forgot about her.
Yeah.
Her campaign.
She's out of her prime.
Yeah. Yeah, right, Don.
I mean, listen. I feel bad for Don Lemon, which I don't think I've ever say in my life. But he got like canceled for saying she's out of her prime, right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he got canceled.
I think that was just like the tip of the iceberg.
I think sensitivity training.
The view, stupid. Like the ratings have just tanked because of Don Lemon, and then I think he said that, and they're like, you know what?
I think it was an accumulation of other sexist things that he was saying to his co-anchors.
Gotcha.
And then he said that, and they were like, all right, that's it.
All my friends are sexist, so. But I genuinely have this belief that, nature is good to women, time is good to men.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what he was getting at. Because, like most women are at their most vivacious and strong when they're young, whereas most men are not valuable whatsoever until they've become, powerful and successful and accomplish things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was trying to like get at is like, listen, like this is like,
yeah.
Nature is good to women. They are at their prime. Like as soon as they hit adulthood, they are just killing it. They can use their abilities to get wherever they need to go. Whereas a guy has to move like one little chess piece at a time.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I'd ever defend Don Lemon, but that's
here you are.
Yeah, I understood where he was coming from.
Yeah.
But Nikki Haley, I think she used to be way more conservative than she is. Again, this all comes down to donor problems. You cannot run a campaign without donors, and all of the hardcore, strong conservatives are with Donald Trump. So these people all have to start tempering what they say and be like, well, we're going to be a little softer. We're going to go a different angle on this one. I think that's not what the American populace wants. That might be what some donors want because they want to be able to go to their country clubs and say, oh, well, I'm a Republican, but I don't support Donald Trump. I would support Nikki Haley. She's very reasoned and rational. And I donated to her because she said, well, I mean, I understand that if you get raped, then you should have an abortion and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure she said that. I'm just saying these are the kind of the
Talking
thought
big
process
Ben.
between, and I call them country club Republicans. I can't stand country club Republicans. I'd rather be elected by truck drivers than people who go to country clubs. They drive me crazy.
Yeah.
They're all generationally wealthy, and most generationally wealthy people are just kind of lazy and sad.
Yeah.
But again, it's all donor driven. That's where we're going to get back to. Like, there's a lot of these conservative candidates who have to be donor driven because Donald Trump's just sucked the air out of the room with all the conservatives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a very hot take. I don't think that women should be president, so she's not going to get my vote.
Like I said, all my friends are sexist.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, it might ruffle feathers, but...
That's a hot take. That's a hot take for you.
It's a hot take, but there's reasoning to that, and I think that men and women are different. I don't think that biologically they're the same. Shocker.
Wow. What?
Yeah, it's insane. By nature, they're different.
This is absurd.
Wait a minute.
Groundbreaking news
Groundbreaking.
here.
You're saying that men and women are different?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get canceled.
Yes.
But I think that women, this is the great thing about women is our nature and nurture, and we're motherly. We're gifted with this amazing thing that we are just so different from men in the sense that we have those motherly instincts. And I think when a woman is in power, and imagine being a woman seeing children at the border trying to get across for a better life, like as a woman, that affects you differently than a man. I think if a man's watching that, they process it differently. But as a woman, you will process that differently. It tugs at your heartstrings differently because you're a woman and because of your nature. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that's absolutely incredible. That should happen. That's not wrong. But I just don't think that because of that and because of the way we process things is different, I don't think that a woman should be president.
No.
So a little different.
Where are you at on that, Megan?
I mean, women in their 50s are also going through menopause, so they can be a little
Us
hormonally fluctuating.
Women are just moody, honestly.
Yeah.
Should we be making big decisions like that?
I mean, you're right. I would not vote for a woman unless she was like.
There was no better options.
No better option. She made her points.
That's the situation one of my really good friends came into in Georgia. She was running. She was going to have to run for Congress because all the guys that were running were just weak and ineffectual and stupid. And then, I believe her husband had to focus on the business and everything. And she said, well, I'm not going to let my children be represented by these people.
Yeah.
And so she had to step up and run. And whereas, because there were no better options. But, I think, and even that person, I think, would say that a woman shouldn't be president. So.
Yeah. And I think for state offices, it's different. Like, if I lived in Arizona, obviously Carrie Lake would have had my vote. But as far as running the entire country, there's a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I have to sit there and decide between Mitch McConnell and Carrie Lake, I'm on your guys' side of this. I'm really like, Carrie Lake is more of a man than that guy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I'm pass on Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
Yeah, pass. Hard pass.
Okay. So we have Christie. I don't know too much about this candidate.
Instead of running for president, he could just go for a run. That could be beneficial.
I was about to say, his weight.
But he has a great climate plan. He could just physically stand outside and it would cover so much of the globe.
I like that one.
It'd be beneficial. Again, that's just, I just have problems with, people who look physically weak being our nation's leader.
Biden?
I mean,
He's body positive.
Fat shaming?
I am. I'm a big fat. I'm very fat phobic. Very fat phobic. But no, I want someone who's going to elicit fear into my image. And that doesn't mean I want a bodybuilder, as my president, but I want someone who looks physically imposing and looks like, okay, that person, if I was to be in a back alley, I probably wouldn't want to mug that guy.
Yeah, I think he could honestly sit on our enemies and that'll take him right out. So people may fear him.
Yeah, I think he's a pass.
I don't know, but I mean, seriously, think about it. When you look at Kim Jong-un versus Vladimir Putin, let's say that you don't know anything about their countries.
Vladimir Putin's more.
Who's your money
You're
on?
going to be like, I am way more afraid of this individual than I am of that individual.
Yeah.
It's just a natural human instinct. And so I don't want someone who looks so morbidly obese that it's like, so you're either one, undisciplined, or you're just undisciplined.
If you can't take care of yourself, how can you take care of
Exactly. And then who's going to say, your energy levels are incredibly low. You have a major risk of having high cholesterol, major risk of having a heart attack. You can have a blood clot super easily. I don't want to have to be sitting here and be at the, let's say we have a Cuban Missile Crisis and then have a change of power because somebody died.
We need another Biden.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't need another person that is just not equipped to do the job in the sense that they're just not physically fit. And me and Megan had some controversy in the comment section for a fat-phobic comment. But I do think it has...
I'll take the heat for you guys on this one. I'm fat-phobic. These guys are very accommodating.
We'll fat shame because I think your physical look and your health says a lot about your character. Mm-hmm. I think if you are physically fit, it shows that you are disciplined and motivated and determined and that you care about yourself enough to make your health a priority.
It's a temple of God.
Yeah, you care about your body, you care about your family because you're going to take care of yourself. It says so much.
It does.
So when you're not physically fit and you're morbidly obese, I just can't get behind that. I don't think that you can be that conservative if you're morbidly obese.
And again, I don't want to just attack him just for his body. I mean, the guy's just not conservative. I mean, him and I do not have the same viewpoint. He might have an R beside his name, but that R stands for rhino. We are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's hard pass.
Hard pass. Tim Scott.
Tim Scott. We got to understand. There's a lot of whether it's a coordinated effort or whatever it is, there is a lot of strategy that goes into who gets involved in a race.
Yeah.
I don't think Tim Scott believes that he's going to be able to beat Donald Trump in a race. I do believe that he's like, I can dilute the vote for other people because, one, I can crush DeSantis in a policy debate, and DeSantis is good on policy, but I think Tim Scott would eviscerate him.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have a hard time. You would have a hard time anyone beating him on policy. Tim Scott's solid.
Yeah.
Two, there's some people who are like, oh, I'm only going to vote for an African American. And and so they were like, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump, so I'm going to vote for somebody else. And so, if Tim Scott gets involved, then he's able to take that away. He's not there to throw stones at other candidates. He's there to just say, look, I have a vision for America. We're going to try and push the messaging, the Overton window, more to the right, more to where we kind of believe, more kind of in the Rush Limbaugh direction. And he's phenomenal. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up in the cabinet position or as VP. South Carolina is going to be a very important race, a very important little state to win. But I love Tim Scott. I mean,
He's
great.
very, very likable.
Again, I would vote for Vivek over Tim, but gosh, I love Tim.
I think that he's very smart. He is well-spoken. He knows his ish. I think he might get eaten alive in the debates just because of how he just seems like a very nice person.
Well, again, I mean, it's gosh, who is the neurosurgeon that ran?
Ben Carson.
Ben Carson, phenomenal. But again, same situation.
Yeah.
Very soft-spoken, really strong on policy. And again, those are the people that you want around you, but that's not the person that you want winning. And so,
yeah, I agree. I think a pass on Tim, but like you said, I think it'd be great in somewhere in the cabinet.
Right.
So we also have Mike Pence,
Hard pass.
which is just had to go throw his name in there. Yeah.
Immediately, hardcore no. Immediately no. One, also, I hate the fact that he is pushing these salacious lies about what Donald Trump was doing, after the election, the election in 2020, all these things. He's either staying silent on things when he's asked questions about it, or he's insinuating that Trump was doing bad things. And as someone who was very close to the Trumps and the Trumps families at the time, I can say that those are lies. And I will say, Mike Pence, he served our country very well for many, many years. He was a good vice president until the very end. I know his brother very well. His office is right down the hall from mine in Congress. Great guy. All the Pences I like their family a lot. But man, when we are sitting here and be like, I mean, is it disloyal for DeSantis to run against Trump? When he gave him the nomination, the endorsement that won him the governorship, whatever. There's no question that what Mike Pence is doing is disloyal. Yeah. It is disloyal not only to Trump, but to the people that voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Yeah. It's evil and it's wrong. And I, as someone who used to really respect Mike Pence, it's very difficult for me to say that. But I mean, he's made me very viscerally angry by this decision that an action that he's taking.
Yeah. He made a lot of people angry.
It's extremely
Mike Pence's brother, you're still a cool guy. I still like you.
And then we have Asa Hutchinson, governor of Arkansas. Yeah, I honestly, these are just like the candidates.
He's the very effeminate white guy, right?
No. That's the senator from Arkansas that everyone loves. No, that's the guy from Louisiana. Sorry. Asa Hutchinson is the guy that struck down the bill that would have banned gender-affirming care to minors.
That's really gay.
Yes.
That's weird.
Yeah. So, and I think...
We're talking about the same guy. I don't like this guy.
No. He's
super effeminate and I'm big on body language, and his body language is just effeminate to me.
Yes.
Because men normally their hands are out here. His hands are always in here, and he's like, oh, what? And I don't know. It's effeminate, and I don't like it.
I don't like him.
I really don't know anything else about it. And I also have a problem with you if I don't know anything about you. I'm very plugged into this situation. So if the people that I listen to and I like and I listen to and follow, if they don't talk about you at all, you're not on our side.
Yeah.
No. And I've never heard of this guy before until you started running president.
Yeah, great point.
Larry Elder.
Solid. What a great guy. If he had won that election, that'd have been great. I haven't really been following his race at all. I don't exactly know what the reason he is in the race for, but he has been such a strong conservative voice for so long. Yes, I think he's really, and also let's talk about the minority community that he represents. He has done a really great job of bringing young African American men who are most of the older generations of African Americans are like, oh, we're voting for Democrats, that's just what we're doing. Whereas I think there's a lot of young African American men who are sitting there saying, what do you guys actually do for us? Our lives have gotten worse under your rule. We had lowest unemployment in all of history under Donald Trump, and then you guys are saying that he's racist. Whereas, you have Trudeau who's literally in blackface and going on and on. And
on more than one occasion.
On more than one occasion. And it's this, you have Joe Biden who spoke at the funeral for a grand wizard of the KKK. The KKK is a Democratic organization, and I think Larry Elder did a really good job of kind of, bringing a lot of these young African-American men and being like, guys, we don't have to just follow what our grandfathers did. We can think for ourselves, and we're not just we're not slaves to this corporate machine.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of young African American guys who are I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to get out of this rat race. I'm going to vote conservative. I'm going to raise great families. And I think it's a great revolution that's happening in that community. So.
I 100% agree. I think he's opening a lot of eyes, and for young African American men that honestly probably haven't asked questions before, or maybe not have known the right questions to ask. And now he's kind of been like,
I do have a really hard time voting for anyone from California, though. So I think Ronald Reagan was from California, I'm pretty sure, but it's still, he was in Western films. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those were the top 2024 Republican candidates.
Great.
Feel like I just have a better sense of who these people are, what they stand for, and character is something that's a really big thing for all of these candidates.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a lot. And I think that's going to be really important to be aware of this election because as we see with Biden, he lacks character.
Right.
So that's something that people need to be hyper aware of when they're voting. Do you know this person, not just their policies, you should know that, but you should also know their character and who they are. And I think Trump exemplifies that.
Yeah, and there's a really big thing that I think a lot of people, they get caught up in talking about, what about the locker room talk? And they're like, what about the cocaine in the White House? And we just start going back and forth on these little tit-for-tat things.
Yeah.
A lot of times, it's not necessarily the person that you're voting for. It's that ideology or that sentiment that's behind them or the American people that are behind them. And so, if you start looking at, behind, Ron DeSantis right now are a lot of country club Republicans.
Yeah.
I don't believe in their version of America. I really don't. They're just like, we're going to have incremental GDP increases at the end of the year, and that's just going to give us a strong moral foundation. Like, you don't know what's going on in our public schools. You don't understand the threat that our youth are facing. We are in a culture war, and if it's not fought, we will lose.
Yeah.
The people who are willing to do anything to win will always be the people who just want to be left alone. And sure, we want to be left alone, but first we have to eviscerate the enemy. And so, I think that people need to think about, if you don't get caught up so much in this argument about, I don't like that Donald Trump said that about women, or I don't like that Joe Biden did this. It's more so, I don't like the fact that we're losing a culture war. And it's not necessarily just like, it's white culture, it's ethno-American culture, it's Christian culture, whatever. It is the culture of we are the greatest country in the world. We never come in second. We dominate in every field that we go into. And the only reason that we do that is because we felt like that is the cards that were passed down to us from former generations who fought like hell to be able to get us to that point.
Yes.
And so now we have to, it's not in our DNA, we have to continue to succeed in that at all times. And you know what? Who is going to help the American empire grow and expand and dominate the world more? That's the only person I want to vote for.
Yes.
And so that's the ideology that we need to be voting for. And so instead of getting caught up in these, these disputes about, I don't like that he's rude. I'm like, that's not what we're worried about. Do you want to speak Chinese?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, what I don't like is that they are sexualizing our children and cutting off their body parts. So
That.
don't love that.
Yeah, when little girls are getting double vasectomies, the doctors who are doing that should be shot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's evil.
Oh.
It's evil. They'll never have children in their lives.
I wonder how they're going to write about these times in history books in 100 years from now.
I'm sure
when
it's
they
the same
talk
way we
about
write
this.
about the Aztecs.
Yeah, they're just going to completely change everything and indoctrinate even more children. I'm hoping we can take back our country and it changes, and that's not going to happen. So when they're writing this chapter, it's going to be the truth.
Yes.
Because we won.
Yeah.
So
I do have one more question about the election.
Hit me.
What do you think of the DNC not having a debate?
Again, they stole the election from Bernie to give it to Hillary. And then they stole it from Bernie again to give it to Joe. But RFK is awesome.
Yeah.
First of all, the dude is jacked.
Yeah.
yeah.
So happy about that. And to be that jacked, he's got to be taking testosterone. So that one, and he's really big on kind of what Big Pharma does. So one, he has to be, if he's taking testosterone, he has to be very aware of the fact that fluoride is in all of our city water.
Yeah.
And therefore it is destroying our testosterone levels in men in America.
Yeah.
And so, as Alex Jones says, it's our water's turning the frog gay, which it literally is.
Frog's okay.
But I remember I used to that's the craziest line I've ever heard. But then I started I heard him on Joe Rogan.
Isn't it crazy how some of the things he starts saying?
And then he broke it down. He's like, no, they're like the fluoride in our water is destroying the testosterone levels in the frogs, and it's doing it to us too. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I love RFK, but they don't want to have a debate against him because he's like starting this populist movement.
He's going to destroy Biden. But do you think that that's going to have a negative impact on the Republican debates? Because they're probably all going to go after each other, and it's just going to look like a fit fest.
You know what? Donald J. Trump is a genius, and he has surrounded himself with some of the best people. I know, like when he first got into office, there was a lot of, I'm going to keep my enemies close, just so we're going to. But now he knows who everyone is, and he has surrounded himself. So you got Alina Habba, you've got some incredible people all around him who are giving him great advice. Eric Trump is one of the smartest people. Eric Trump is one of the smartest people I've ever spoken to in my entire life.
I believe it.
And I've spoken to some incredibly intelligent people. And so I think there's going to be a great strategy for Trump to still be able to get in there, throw the blows he likes to do, have those lines where we're all tweeting about it and memeing it for the rest of the year. But also where Trump's going to sit there and look like, hey guys, I appreciate all of you getting in this race. Let's all just have a discussion. This is basically a roundtable. What do you guys think I should do when I'm president? Mm-hmm. And I think that there's going to be a way that it's not going to be just aside from other candidates making themselves look just like dummies by throwing just mud at Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I think that Donald Trump's smart enough to know if we get into just a yelling argument, it's going to look bad.
He's gonna control the atmosphere.
Yeah, he's going to control the atmosphere.
Yeah.
When he walks in, he dominates.
Controls the room.
I have a big personality. Literally, when he walks by, I'm just like, I could not exist in this room. He's everything.
I don't know what to say. People tell me.
Okay, yeah. We have to have the Trump impression here because Megan has a great Trump impression.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
People tell me my impression is very great. That's just what they say. That's what they say. I don't know. That's what they tell me.
Now, Megan is sitting over here saying that she has a great impression of Donald Trump. Let me tell you, it was bad. If not just bad, it was the worst impression I've ever heard of Donald Trump in my entire life. You should be ashamed. You brought shame to your family name and to our country. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Does everyone else agree with that? Okay, thank you.
That's good. Wow, that was tough. That was tough. Wow.
You
exposed.
Go.
Oh no, mine is nowhere near. You gotta do it out in public. It's still a work in progress. So I will decline that. But Madison, thank you so much. I'm getting my way out of doing a Trump impression.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you guys for watching.
We'll see you on the next one.